Today I have a Sony EVW300. Now this was the pinnacle of Hi8 camcorders. There was no better Hi8 camcorder made by any manufacturer. And when you see it, you'll understand why. This was a broadcast quality professional camcorder, but this one here has a bad cappy picture. Well, that's my twist on words there for bad craps, right? Anyway, this is not going to be repaired in this one. This is just an evaluation. Let's check it out. Today we're working on a Sony EVW300. Now, many of you may look at this camera and say, gee, that looks like the CCD V5000. And it does, kind of, but it's not. This is a professional broadcast quality Hi8 camera. Sony was attempting to make a less expensive camera to their Betacam for smaller market stations, and this is what they came up with. It uses a Hi8 tape, but it's a 3-chip Hyper-HAD half-inch pickup. I had the exact camera for years. I wish I still had it. I sold it. I've told the story before about selling it and really having a nightmare with the buyer. The camera I had, this one has a Fujitsu lens, and it's a f1.4 7.5 to 105 lens. Mine was a lot bigger than that. Mine was a 7.5 to, I think it was 135 or 155. It was a longer lens than this. It was also an f1.4 like this. But see, the thing with this is what's called a half-inch camera. So the sensor inside here is a half-inch sensor, and you've got the different filter wheels for the different color temperatures, but it's a half-inch sensor, and the optics are designed to project the image onto a half-inch sensor. A 2/3 inch camera has a different lens, and it has a larger sensor. And you can't really use a half-inch lens on a 2/3 inch camera because, well, you'll end up with shading in the corners. Another difference is the 2/3 inch lenses such as used on the betas typically don't use these contacts here because this is a specific lens. But they call this one, if there was a name for this lens, was it an EF lens or anyway, or Z lens. Anyway, they have the contacts here, and the other cameras had a separate cable, and you plugged the lens into the iris for the lens plugged in through a plug on the side, which this camera doesn't have. Now, quite often you can use these lenses on other cameras, but you won't get the auto like it won't set it up. I think you can probably plug in there. I think that's where it plugs in. There's an adapter cable you can put on here to plug in to an existing camera. I think that's the connector for cameras that don't have these internal connections. But anyway, when I sold mine, because mine had the Canon lens on it, when I sold mine all those years back, the guy that bought it had planned to use the lens on a different camera, and of course it didn't work because it didn't fit properly, and he was upset. But I should say that one left a bad taste in my mouth. I wish I had hung on to the camera just to have as a showpiece, not that I would use it. I'll put this beside my Betacam so that you can see the size difference between this and a real Betacam. And there's a huge weight difference too. This is about half the weight of the Betacam. And for that matter, I'll put my 3-chip JVC alongside just so you can get a physical comparison between the two. So here's the EVW300 sitting next to the JVC GY-DV500 professional DV camera, and here is the Betacam. Oh, that thing's a heavy beast. Not to be confused, but it is considerably bigger. Both of these cameras both use the same NP1 battery, interchangeable. It's a Sony battery. This one here could be fit with a back for an NP1. This one's got an Anton Bauer NiCad pack. Both of these cameras you can put an optional wireless microphone receiver that slides into that slot. This cover comes off and a wireless receiver would go in there, as well as on this one. No such provision on the EVW300. There was provisions on the back of the battery pack though to either add a wireless receiver or an optional Anton Bauer back plate on both of these cameras. As you can see, my JVC also features an interchangeable lens, and it's more like the Beta where it uses an external connection. There's no contacts here on this camera. So this lens will not work on this camera even though it will physically fit it. It won't control the iris unless you have a cable that will plug in. Well, actually, no, you can't even do it because you can use this lens on this camera if you have the optional cable that would plug in here, but this lens here doesn't have the contacts and this camera doesn't have the plug. So on the EVW300 you were stuck using a specific series of lenses that were designed to work with EVW300. If we compare it to the Betacam, control-wise they're very similar. They both have a button to eject, and if you flip this open, they both look identical. Stop, play, fast forward, rewind, and of course the large eject button, which you can access without opening that up. On the side, this one's got digital meters for the sound, but earlier versions of Betacam also had the analog meters. On the side, you can adjust your audio level manually, an alarm control and a monitor control for the speaker that's in the side of the camera so that the camera operator can hear what's being said or what's being recorded. This one has a switch for a light that will sit on top of the camera, and your standard save and standby. Standby turns on the drum and keeps it ready to record. Save, when you stop recording, it shuts the drum down to save the battery and to save wear on the heads, but of course it takes a few seconds to start up when you hit the record button. Your standard low, medium, and high gain bars and camera. White balance control. This one has a setup for menu and setup down here. Power switch on and off. And on the front there's also a start-stop control, which is hard to get at with this bracket on the front, but there's another control here for making settings. Mic level control on the front here. White balance, white and black balance. And there's a start-stop button in here somewhere. Shutter speed. And somewhere in here there's another control. Anyway, you get it. On this, on the Sony, the 8mm, here we've got auto tracking white. So if you don't have time to set up your white balance, you can just do that. Automatic gain control, monitor level for the speaker, and on the side here you flip this down and you've got, this is where you set up your memory and your drop frame or non-drop frame time code. Marker, zebra on and off, subcarrier phase. When you're running a multi-camera and you're running external Genlock, you can adjust your color bars so they're in phase. This is the alarm control, makes it beep through the speaker. Of course, your VU meters, PCM1, PCM2, and the AFM. There's 3 sound tracks on this, a mono AFM track and your 2 PCM tracks. The mono AFM is typically recorded from the built-in microphone that's on the camera, although you can switch it to channel 1 or to the camera, so it says AFM. So the AFM, which is the mono recording, can either record what's plugged into input number 1 or the internal camera, and vice versa. The PCM channel number 1 can either record what's plugged into number 1 or the microphone on the camera. So it switches the 2 of them around. But at no time will they record the same thing. So the front, the built-in microphone is either going to go to the AFM track or to PCM1 or vice versa. The external input number 1 is going to either go to input 1 or to the AFM track. Like that's how it works. Was on this one here. And this one here, obviously this meter always recorded what was on the PCM1 track. And this meter here would show you what was either on PCM2 or the AFM or battery, which you could select here for your meter. Battery, AFM, or PCM2. So if you're recording 2 external microphones. Audio and manual recording for, or auto and manual recording for your 3 soundtracks. And you had your counter, and you could display either a counter or time code, and there was a light behind it as well. Time code on this camera was not compatible with RC time code that the consumer machines used. This was an industrial time code that was not compatible. So if you were using, say, an EVS7000 to edit, and you wanted to edit with time code, once you recorded on a camera such as this, you'd have to take the tape and stripe it, rewrite the time code in a consumer time code. But if you use one of the industrial machines like the EVO300, that could read the time code from this camera. And that was that. Power switch, of course, on the side here. Gain, 0, mid, and high. Color bars or camera. And then you had your preset A and B. So preset was, depending on what your color wheel was set to, either 3200 or 5600. Or you could set your 2 separate manual white balance, where you'd point the camera at a white card and press the white balance switch up on the front, which was here. White balance up and black balance down. This one here was shutter control, shutter speed, I believe that was. And you could cycle through them with these buttons. VTR control for when you're on a tripod. You could just hit the button here as opposed to having to reach around and press the button on the lens. You could start and stop it right there. Electric viewfinder plugged in right onto this plug here. And I don't have the viewfinder for it because that just added extra shipping weight, and this was sent a long ways to be serviced, so we try to keep the shipping weight down. Anyway, that's the features of the camera. As I say, it looks very much like the Betacam. If I turn the other one over on the side here so you can see how it looks by comparison, they look fairly similar, except for this one's a whole lot heavier than this one, about twice the weight that this camera is. Still, this delivered an excellent picture. Sony developed this camera not so much for the industrial market. This was developed for broadcast. It was developed for small market TV stations that didn't want to invest the kind of money that it cost to go full beta. So some of the smaller market stations used these. And of course, corporate shooters, serious videographers, we use these cameras because the quality on this was really close to the quality on something like this. And when you were dubbing down to VHS or DVD, the quality looked fine once it was edited off of here. You were hard pressed to tell the difference between something shot on this camera and something like that. Although that obviously has a better signal to noise ratio and a little bit higher resolution. And being the bigger tape, there's fewer dropouts, fewer concerns with dropouts. But again, at the cost of what this costs and the weight, because this is not a light camera. Now, first things first, this is more of an inspection than anything else right now. This camera is going to be serviced. That's why it was sent in. And I'm going to do my best to get this thing working properly. Again, I can't guarantee because you don't know what's wrong with it, if there's what parts are gone or anything that might need. So first things first, let's plug in the camera. I'll get my power cord, hook it up to the power supply, and we'll see what it does. And then we'll start working on this one. All professional cameras use the same 4-pin XLR type connector, which is great because you only have to have one cable. I'm going to power the camera up in color bars mode and see whether I get color bars on the screen. I do get color bars. I'm seeing some noise in those color bars. I'll show you them. Don't know how well it's coming across on camera, but there is noise. Camera's drawing 1.18 amps, which is about right. And this is what the picture looks like. I'm going to switch it over to camera now, and you can see that the camera has a very noisy picture. And this is our problem. This is going to be, it looks like a problem in the DC to DC converter. Just from the preliminary, it looks like a DC to DC converter problem. I want to try to play a tape, so I'm going to pop a tape into it. It'll play regular and Hi8 tapes, so I'm going to pop a tape into the unit right now. I want to just see how it plays a tape. And there's playback. We have our work cut out for us. So it's not playing, and it's got a very noisy picture from the camera. But at least the tape threads. So we'll start by taking out the tape. One thing I never figured out is why it has this little slot on here. Like what's the oh, I guess that's to keep debris out. I don't even think mine had that little lever on there. It's been so long, maybe it did. Maybe it did have that flap, because it doesn't really do anything when you put the tape in. I guess I don't think mine had that. Maybe it did. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But anyway, so this camera's got problems with both record and play. The camera's got a problem as well. It's got a servo zoom lens, which can operate at anywhere from slow right through to fast variable speed. And no, it won't focus on it. It's too close. Alright, so now we've seen what we're up against. Let's tear this thing apart. We'll start by removing the left side of the camera. If I'm not mistaken, these screws don't come all the way out. They have washers on the back of them to hold them in place. Again, professional equipment was designed for maintenance. Wait till you'll see what's inside this thing. Is it going to be cringe-worthy? Of course it's going to be cringe-worthy. So we've got a camera with a bunch of boards that are full of our favorite craps. This is the, I think this is the servo board on this. No, this might be the color board. There's another couple boards under. There's like 3 boards under here. AU162. This is the audio board on this one. There's like 3 more boards under here that are sandwiched under here, and 4 more boards over here on the camera side of things. They all unplug, so the cards can be pulled out just like that, and capacitors changed. There's more caps on the main board and behind. If we look down here, I mean, these are just full. This is one of the reasons I sold mine, was you got more caps here. Now, not all of these are going to be bad. There's a couple more down there. But again, you know, I mean, you've got tons of these little time bombs. That have the potential to be bad. 2 more down here on the board, the main board. At least these boards come out easily for servicing. And of course they were designed to just pop a new board in. Here's the 3 CCD chips here. They don't have any surface mounted caps on these, which is good, because you don't want to take this block apart. You'll never get it aligned properly. But this is the prism and the 3 pickup chips, as you can see them there. So you've got a red, a blue, and a green. I think that's the green. Usually the green's at the back and the red and the blue are over top of them. First things first, I'm going to get into the power supply on this one, because that's, for starters, we see problems in the power supply. That's the first place to look. So I'm going to pull the other side of the camera off so we can access the back side as well. To access this side, we take out the 2 screws that hold on the cassette cover. 4 more screws to hold this cover on. This cover should come off completely. The other one's held in place by straps, so that if the camera is sitting on a tripod being worked on, the cover just hangs off the side so that the adjustments can be made. This side cover just pops off like that. What the heck? Someone stuck this in place with a piece of tape. It's holding some little rubber grommet just sitting there. I wonder what that's from. It's fallen off something and someone just stuck it inside the cabinet with a piece of tape. Got our good old foam head cleaner here. A conventional transport. Loading motor. This is just the interface board, so there's nothing really to go wrong on this one. Got to get to the power supply. The power supply is back here if I'm not mistaken. So to get to the power supply, I actually have to remove the battery housing. So screw down to the bottom. And then this opens up. And then there's a couple more screws inside. And then this back will come off. Looks like there's a screw already missing from here. And that brings the back off, and that exposes. This is the DC to DC converter. It is right here in this board here. Okay, let's check the DC to DC converter first. First things first, we'll check this out. And say I'm going down this road right now just because I have interference on both the color bars and the camera. So it's common to everything. So here's a DC to DC converter open. As you'll see, it's got 2 circuit boards in it. And of course, these boards are not pluggable. They are soldered together. They have a bunch of through-hole caps on here. I don't see any surface mounted on this unit itself, just through-hole caps. 50, looks like 50 microfarad, 150 microfarad at 25 volts. We'll just check the ESR on these ones. Point 1, probably okay. 0.08. 0.04, they look okay. It'd be tough to check some of these other ones because of the other board that's in the way, but there's 4 of them along the back here. These are 10 microfarad, 0.08, 0.6, 0.7, 0.1. There's some more down here. 0.1. 0.2, these are all looking okay. 0.01, 0.1, 0.4, 0.1, 0.8. These are not very big caps. Most of these are like 10 microfarads at 10 volts, and they're solid type cap as well, but they're Sanyo. 10 microfarad at 10 volt, well, I mean, it's showing, it doesn't even show on here, but a 16 volt would be 8. And they're all well below that. There's another cap here. What's this one measuring? 0.3. Geez, these are all looking okay on this board. Well, I don't think there's much of a problem with the DC to DC converter board on this one. At least not this one. There's more than one converter in the camera, obviously. But this one looks to be okay, so we're going to put this one back into the camera and start looking elsewhere. just the 3 plugs plug in. And then the converter just fits back in, just like that. First board I'm going to start on is, I'm going to start on the, I think it's the ES4 board. This does a lot of video processing. We'll check some of the caps on this board here and just see how bad they are. And I think for something like this I'm going to have to order in some surface mounted caps, just because I won't have room really to put conventional caps in here. But we're going to just test these out and just see what I need to get, and then I'll have to see if I can find some. So I'll put the camera over there a bit just for a minute while I can do some tests here. We'll see how bad these little buggers are. Yeah, you see, I've zeroed out my meter. That one's open. 1.9, that one's, it's a 10 microfarad at 16 volts, so 10 microfarad, 1.9 is probably okay. 5.9, that one might be okay too for now. 11, that one's bad. 2.4, that one's probably okay. 0.32, that one's probably okay. 1.8, that one's probably okay. May only be a few of them that are really bad on here that's causing all that noise. That one there is probably open. Yeah, that one's open. That's going to be a main filter. Well, 5.6, but that's 100 microfarad. 100 microfarad should be less than 1.2, so that one's bad. That 100 is bad, and as is this one here is probably also going to be bad. Okay, so the board's swung out here. There's 3 boards on here. This one doesn't appear to have, well, it doesn't. I don't think this one has any surface mounted. Definitely this one does, as does this one. And this one at the back here, it's got a bunch of them on there. I'm just taking inventory to see how many possible caps are going to have to be changed on this thing, because there's tons. And I don't know that they're all bad, but we certainly gotta check them. There's screws missing from this too. I think someone's left that screw out there on the board, and this screw here on this other board is stripped. So I'm gonna have fun taking that one out, because that board is, someone's cross-threaded that screw in, and it's not even put in all the way, but it won't come out. It's stripped. I need to flip this board out of the way to get to this other board that's under here. You see, this board folds out. Boy. The servo boards are down here. This is VO43. This is the servo, this one here, if I'm not mistaken. It's been so long since I've worked on one of these units. But this whole mechanism comes out. This is the VTR portion. These are video boards here. Audio board. And then these are the camera boards. So I'm just taking inventory as to what I need to get. Some of these are available locally at the local supplier, but these aren't cheap. These little caps cost a lot of money compared to regular caps. Like a regular electrolytic cap, maybe 30-40 cents wholesale, right? These ones here are well over $1 per little cap. So you got to change a lot of capacitors. It's going to add up pretty quick. So I'd kind of like to change what I need to change on here to get it running, to see how it can look, and I'll be in discussion with the owner as to how far he wants to go. If he wants to change all these caps out, I certainly wouldn't mind changing them all out, but it's going to get, you know, a little bit pricey when you start changing out you know, dozens upon dozens of these surface mounted caps. So I'm just inspecting the boards, looking for which caps I think need to be replaced. There's so many of them here that are Well, that one's not too bad, but most of them are the larger ones, like the 47s. That one's not too bad, but most of the 47s are that I've tested so far. 47s and 100s have been bad. But you can see not all of them are. That one's bad. See, some of these are okay. So they may not all need to be replaced, but certainly the ones that are measuring open for sure, they've all got to be done. Evan, that one. See, a lot of these are bad. .45, that's okay. These are bad. So I think what we'll do on this is I'm gonna because I got to replace so many, I'm gonna have to order in some surface mounted caps. I mean, I probably have room on some of these boards to put in regular caps. Like that one's open, you see. 7.5, yeah, that should be replaced. This is a 1 microfarad here. That one's open. You see, these are all open. So this is definitely going to be a multi-part video. This one here I'll put up just because I'm just doing the investigation on this one, as I don't have parts. So we're going to have to put this one back together and put it on the shelf for a while and get some parts in and see whether we can get this one to run. Be a great camera to get working. I mean, they look cool, and as for a standard definition camera, well, they were the broadcast camera that Sony put out for the Hi8 market. Check the next board. See, open. They're all bad. 0.2, that one's probably okay. That one's open. That one's open. 3.3, probably should be replaced while we're at it. 2.2. That one's open, that one's open. Yeah, these are all bad. Every one of these. So I have to do an inventory of all these parts and get back to the guy and let him know what he's looking at. I mean, there's probably 100 caps in here that have got to be changed at minimum. I mean, just looking at here, I mean, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20. 20 on this board. You just kind of count these things up. The next board over, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 35 caps there. $36, 37, 8, 9, 40, 41, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 49 caps by the time we get to this board. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 60. So that's 80 capacitors just on these boards alone. And then there's the VTR boards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on that board that I can see. 28, 30. 30 on these two boards, that board and this one, plus however many is on these boards, which I can't see because this strip screw. I have to take out that screw that's stripped, but there's 2 more boards in there. I mean, we're talking a lot of caps on this thing that are going to have to be ultimately changed out to make this thing reliable. And I just spotted something else just on this other board that's lying on my bench here. This could also be problematic. Let's take a look at this. I just happened to just notice this. This is one of the camera boards, but it looks like something has burnt up right there, doesn't it? Now that could be, it could have been leakage through from this cap because it's pretty much right on the other side, but right there it looks like something has burnt on this board. So this board itself may be toast. Anyway, I'm going to leave it right now at this point because I don't have the caps in stock. I really do need to talk to the fellow that owns it and see how much money he wants to put into this thing, and hopefully that board is not, it's salvageable. It's just the caps that are bad, and there's nothing else that's failed on here. But I'm going to close this one down at this point. As I say, this was just basically an evaluation just to see how far we're going to go on this camera today and see what basically was needed to repair it. So I'm going to put all the screws back in. You see this screw here? This one's just, that one's stripped. So obviously this camera has been worked on before because there's all the paint seals were broken. There's a screw missing inside the battery compartment, and that one's stripped. I'm going to throw the side cover on now, and we'll set this one aside and pick up on it at a later date once I have some parts, whenever that may be. But I got to talk to the guy that owns it first, and we'll see how much money he wants to spend on this thing, because it's not going to be an inexpensive repair. Not when you've got to change, 150 or so capacitors on them at a couple of dollars each, and that's what these surface mounted caps typically run. But by the time you buy them all and get them shipped, then and then change them, so a lot of time involved in changing all those caps. Looks like his Fuji lens did the same thing as mine, the macro. I'll show you my lens from my JVC camera, because it uses a Fuji lens. It's broken in the same place. That's crap plastic. I'd say my JVC uses the same lens, except for it's got the cable that plugs into the camera, but it's just, I think it's the same or very, very similar to this one, f1.4. Anyway, mine, I've got it held together with some tape because it's cracked in the same place. See what I mean? Mine's cracked as well, for the macro. So I put a piece of tape on it so I wouldn't accidentally turn it while I was, oh, that's falling out now, while I was adjusting. Actually, mine's cracked probably down here, but it's cracked. That's why it's taped. Seemed to be a problem with these Fujinon lenses, is that they broke. So there it is, all back together. We'll pick this up again at a future date, providing I get the authorization to repair it, and can get some parts in for it. I'm still not so sure about what's going on with that board, whether that board itself has any other damage other than the caps on it. The caps definitely need to be replaced for sure. There may be other problems on that board, and that board may need to be replaced, or at least find out what else is wrong with it. It looks like something has failed on the board, or it could just be corrosion from leakage of electrolytic, and that's another concern, because once those caps leak, any of the ones that leak, the liquid that comes out of them is mildly alkaline or mildly base, and what happens is it eats into the traces on the board, and if they're a multi-layer board, it can get into the internal traces. So that board, if it's had leakage on it, may need to be replaced. Rubber coating on here is starting to deteriorate. You can see it. It's going to go all sticky. Starting to go. Surprised it hasn't gone yet, but starting to go on it. Anyway, we're going to put this one aside for now. We're going to pick this one up once we have some parts. Till the next time, we'll catch you in the next one. Bye. For you guys hanging around there, I'll show you some shots taken off of the EVW300 that I had back in. This would have been recorded in, I'm going to say 1990, maybe summer 97. So these were some of the evaluation shots that I did on this camera when I first got it. It was either the spring or the summer of 97. Unfortunately, the tape's not dated, so I don't know exactly when it was. It might have been early spring, like maybe February or March. Flowers aren't out yet, so it's... No, we're not in the summer yet. And of course, it's kind of overcast. It was probably the first day I had the camera that I shot this. That's a monster crow, that is. Oh, now I know how the cops photographers feel. Holy smoke. Actually, it's not that hard because it's so heavy. It just sits there and rides. Now, believe it or not, I'm driving and it's a stick. But not to worry, because I actually got the car up to speed with the camera sitting beside me and then just kind of grabbed it and threw it up on my shoulder and hit record. I'm not looking through the viewfinder at all. Oh, there's the Vancouver Police Dog Squad. Nice doggies. I think he spotted me. That's the canine pole right there. The fire hydrant that all the dogs piss on. Jeez, this lens works pretty good, eh? It's only 12 power, but boy, it sure looks a lot more. The vertical lines you see around the headlights, that's called smear, and that's a characteristic of CCDs. You don't get that with CMOS sensors. Perfect, a boat here. I'm going to bring a little bit of gain in because I'm getting a little bit of low light indication. 9 dB gain, oh, brighter than anything. Probably don't even need it. 0 dB. This was filmed on the night that I got the camera after work, so that's why I'm doing it in the evening, because I worked until 6. So I head down to Vancouver to take some shots with a tripod off the Cambie Street Bridge, just to see how it would perform on low light as it's getting dark.
think it's about time we take the camera off the sticks and head back. We've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, taking some shots at twilight here off the Canby Street Bridge. Now we can go and evaluate the tape footage.
Time to go around and be depressed.
Hey, watch it.
How ironic, I just about got mowed over in a crosswalk right in front of the Vancouver police station. Oh, the old creepy neighbor. The neighborhood had a party when he moved out and they tore his house down. That guy was an odd duck. He would just stand there and watch people.
Runs onto the can. Oh yeah. So how's it going?
Oh, pretty good.
I mean those small, video boards?
Yeah, black and white.
Black and white must be. Is that cheaper?
Get black and white for about $125.
Locally?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind RCA.
It's $525.60,
Oh,
which is
oh yeah, because it's not RF or whatever. It's not video.
Are you trying to find?
You can call it.
Yeah, I'll do that. There once.
What's your call?
CVX.
Oh yeah, we probably talk. CJV is the call. So I'm busy putting it. I gotta get a couple more things together before too long, and then we'll be able to see what we can do.
It's a nice camera though. That's it?
What's that? It's RS15. Have you tried any of those? Well, this is should come at 6:30 or so.
Come on, will ya? This hand shooting is crazy. I should have got my stick. Beautiful. Boy. What a shit.
This is some raw footage. I was hired by a company that did the advertising for the starboards down at the stadium. So they wanted me to go down and film the starboards to include them into their ad for a promotion. So I went down to shoot it. You know, you would think that if they're sending me down to take pictures of the starboard, that at least they would make sure that they had had maintenance done and that they didn't have a bunch of dead pixels or stuck pixels. Oh well, I got paid the same to go down and shoot it regardless. So I went down, set up my tripod, shot the starboard at BC Place, and some shots of the location of it to be included into the promotional video from the company that was contracted to advertise and market this starboard, this one and others